So they went on, and then Russell went on to say that a private commercial bank, which had just received extra reserves from the Fed, can make roughly $6 in loans for every $1 in reserve it obtains from the Fed. Today that's 12 at least. How does it get $6 for one? It simply makes a book entry on its loans customers saying you have a deposit with $6 with us. So when you go in and get a loan, you sign a promissory note, and the banker puts that on his books as an asset. He puts the numbers in your checking account, and that's all he puts there, is just the numbers that represent how much you borrowed in your checking account, which becomes a liability to him and an asset to you. Now you each one have a brand new asset, and you each have a brand new liability, and now you have brand new money created and put into the system. And that's how every dollar is created. Then he went ahead to say, you may want to know whether the bank is the one getting the benefit of the new money, since the bank owns the new money, while the customers have merely borrowed the money. The bank does indeed get the benefit of the new money. And we all thought we got the benefit. That's why we went and borrowed it, wasn't it? Because we wanted to expand, or we wanted to do something, and that's what really got me into thinking about this in the first place. Because although we was producing lots of wealth right from the ground that grew out every spring, when the spring came and green grass started to grow, that's where the bulk of this come from, and it was all wealth. We was basically a roughage ranch that raised cattle on mainly roughage. We had a herd of cows, and we also fed calves until they got about 700 pounds. And so, having borrowed lots of money and paid lots of interest, I wrote back to Russell Monk and I said, another point I need you to clarify, if money is only created by an extension of credit and a book entry, where does the money come from to pay the interest on the money I just borrowed? And now, if you guys would be kind enough, I would like to do just a little experiment here. I'll tell you what, I'll just make it $10, and I'd just like to loan each one, 10 people, I'd like to loan you each one $10. Well, I guess that's 100 here. I better loan you 10.
I'd like 100.
Well, that's okay. We'll give you the 100.
Thank you.
We'll loan you 10. And we'll loan you 10, and tell me when I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7. 8. 9, 10. That's 10, right? Every 10 people got one? Okay. You don't want to get into it, huh? That's fine. You're the smartest one of the bunch. Okay, now, I've got $190 loaned out, correctly? 110 and 9 tens. Okay, now, at 10% interest, and then we're just going to make it 10%, that simple, you will owe me $19 more than you borrowed, won't you, collectively? You owe me $11, everybody got 10, and you owe me 110, won't you? Okay, so I'll tell you what, we're just going to have you each one pay me back, and now to borrow this, you all had to put up a little collateral. You all understand that, don't you? I didn't want to tell you that because I didn't want you to know that I want your necklace there. I really like that necklace. My wife would love that. And she'd kind of probably like yours too, and she'd like them earrings, and I'd like a watch or two, and so we all put up for collateral. So we'll start with you, and you need to go out because you will spend this money, and then you'll need to go out to do something to collect it back, won't you? So we'll just skip that part, and we'll say that now you've collected back the $100 you spent. But to get out of debt, you've got to pay me $110, don't you? So would you turn to your neighbor and sell her something so you can get her $10?
I'll buy that necklace for $10.
Okay, we'll just give her the $10. Whoever wants it, we'll just give the $10. Okay, now you can pay me back, can't you?
I can.
Okay, so I'll take that back. And now what have we done? We've taken $110 out of circulation, right? Now, Russell Monk said, when I asked him this, where does the interest come from? He said interest on borrowed money comes from the same place the other money comes from. In other words, it's got to be borrowed by somebody before it can out there for you can capture it. Now let's go on here, and it says, I got a letter from the Library of Congress, that said money is created when loans are issued and money is extinguished when a loan is repaid. Some existing money in circulation must be required by the borrower to repay the capital of the loan, and when returned to the bank is withdrawn from circulation. And that's just exactly what we had. Now this money actually gets completely extinguished and wiped off the books. It no longer exists. This I put in my bank account as my profit. So this money still stays out there as somebody else's indebtedness. So he's got the indebtedness, is still drawing interest, but he don't have any money, does he? Because I now have that money all back, don't I? So we go to the next person, and she's got to do the same thing. So you got to turn to somebody, and you only need $1, but we'll just say it's $100 you borrowed. Just make it simple. So you get the 10, and now you can pay me back, and we'll just say you borrowed 100. I should have loaned every other person 100. Okay, now the same thing happens. This money gets extinguished. This money gets in my personal income. Now, you don't have any money left. You don't have any money left. But you still have the debt, and she's clear out of debt, isn't she? And we go on down the line until finally somebody's going to end up, and you've got to turn to him and get some money. That again is taken out of circulation, and you could still work. You didn't have to have any money to work and sell something, did you? No, I mean, you could have went out and trimmed her hair or washed her feet or polished her toenails or anything and got the money, couldn't you? Or the same with him. So see, you don't need to have any money to do some production and produce some wealth that gains you some money. But the money has to exist before you can get it, don't you? Okay, and the money can only exist when I, the banking system, have loaned it to somebody else. If I haven't done it, that money does not exist. Now that wasn't always true, because if we was back and using gold, then if I went out and mined a little bit of gold and spent it, we'd have had money in circulation without debt, wouldn't we? Now see, everybody tells you, we'll say this is a gold coin, you can't see it. Everybody says the only difference between these two forms of money is this has intrinsic value and this does not. And the government can print more of this very easily and they can't that. And that's simply maybe partially true, but it's not really what the problem is. This money represented wealth with no debt and no interest. This money has always represented interest-bearing debt owed to the bank, created at the bank at no cost whatsoever or very little cost. And now when we don't even print this, we just use numbers in a checking account. It costs them nothing but whatever on a computer costs. And see, this is what everybody misses. The difference between this is wealth, represented wealth, and this is evidence of indebtedness. And this is exactly how they switched this from one to the other. You can see the actual bill. Because there was the actual bill, and then we had the United States of America, Federal Reserve note, redeemable in gold on demand at the United States Treasury, or in gold or lawful money at any Federal Reserve Bank. And the bill said, we'll pay to the bearer on demand $10. Now we switch it down here. It says United States of America, Federal Reserve note. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private, and redeemable in lawful money at the United States Treasury or any Federal Reserve Bank. Our money was tenderized. And it's really hard to get them to tell you what lawful money is. Then they went down, and this bill says the same thing, but it's only 3 lines instead of 4 and a lot line to print. But each one of them still has a pay to the bearer on demand. In 1963, they changed the money. Now it says this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private, and $10. Now it's only 2 lines, and they took away the promise to pay. So now they don't owe you anything because they've taken off the promise to pay. You have to borrow and pay them interest to get this. And they sooner or later end up with everybody's property. Either personally through foreclosures or have the advantage of it by having a mortgage on it and having you pay interest on it.